All right, I'm joined by my fellow fun runners, Alex Sear, Caitlin Tossi, and we're going to break down everything that went down this year at the 2025 Barkley Marathons. We'll get into, obviously, how it all played out. We'll do a little speculation game as to what the factors probably and perhaps were that created, guys, a pretty brutal year, pretty tough year.
Say so.
Maybe the worst in history.
We will get into that. We've got some data that we have crunched, and we'll put this into context, into historical context, and look at and ask the big question: was this the worst Barkley year ever in terms of performances? Now, we should say that we are rooting for the runner versus the idea of the Barkley. It is almost like it's like the Barkley, the concept versus the field every year, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And this year, the Barkley absolutely demolished the field. So, and I've got a couple of fun questions for you guys at the end. So,
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah. So let's get into the results first. At very, very late at night on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, depending on how you think about it. I guess technically Thursday morning at 3 something in the morning last night.
Yeah, it's definitely morning.
That's definitely morning. We got word that one runner, John Kelly, Barkley legend, managed to salvage the event for the field by completing the 3-lap fun run in just under 40 hours. He did it in, do you guys have the number right in front of you?
Yeah, it was 31 one day. It's like so hard to read. One day, 15 hours, 50 minutes, and 27 seconds. So he did it with like 9.5 minutes to spare.
Yeah.
Just under the gun.
Yeah. 39 hours, 50 minutes, 27 seconds. So 9 minutes, 33 seconds, basically the multi-day ultra running equivalent of diving across the finish line in order to get in under the cutoff. So he gets it done. For those who don't understand the terribly opaque rubric that is the Barkley Marathons, there's a bunch of different cutoffs. The one important one for us to be aware of here is the 40-hour cutoff for what they call the fun run, which is getting 3 of 5 possible laps completed. It's seen as a badge of honor in and of itself. And in many years, the Barkley only sees runners achieve a fun run. There's only ever been 20 people that have finished the damn thing since 1986. So,
right. I think we want to make clear that no one finished, right? So we have to say no one completed the 5 loops this year. No one, not one person. So the fun run by John Kelly was the best we had for the Barkleys this year.
So let's walk through this a little bit. Let's go through the timeline of this event, which I think will give us a more fulsome picture of just the carnage that ensued here. I think right from the gun here, the race starts. So the race can start in this window from very early in the morning until noon on any given day in the lead up of the sort of like the 1 week window or so that the race director, Lazarus Lake, defines as when the Barkley is going to happen to the runners and nobody else in the outside world, as we're all like trying to figure out when the damn thing happens. And this year it started at the latest time ever at 11:47 a.m. Eastern time was the start time.
11:37.
11:37.
We keep going back and forth, and now I got confused. 11:37 a.m. Eastern time. So
that's
just
a brutal
under
start.
The noon. Yeah,
that's a brutal start. Waiting for almost 12 hours and waiting for the conch shell to be blown, and just knowing that, I don't know, just the anticipation would have killed me, that you had to wait almost 12 hours to start the race, and you're starting almost at noon instead of starting like a nice, like, a lot of ultras, they start, first thing in the morning or in the middle of the night. So you have like that really nice warm up to the noon hour. But no, this race, they wanted to start it just about at noon.
And you didn't get a full morning of running in the first lap. And that was that was on full display when we started to see the results come in after lap one. It was by far the worst year performance wise by the field for the first loop. Only 10 runners managed to complete loop one, which I believe the second worst year in terms of loop one finishers was 18 runners prior to that. So that's like a bad start, guys. Like that's we're already in trouble. We're already thinning out the field. We're already lessening the possibility of somebody getting through all 5 loops from the jump.
Mm-hmm. And there was even like you could take one of the competitors, John Kelly, because he had been there. This was his 8th start. So if you wanted to get a little bit nerdy with comparing results, you could try to do it the Kelly way and compare year over year. And he did finish the first loop, but it was, I think, his slowest ever first loop by a matter of hours. And so you could already tell that something was off.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if he's a veteran who's running it a lot slower. I know you would understand someone new, even maybe another really seasoned ultra runner coming in and running it at that time and running it on the slower side, but he's a veteran. He knows the course. And yes, it gets changed up a little bit every year, but he's done it so many times that it was shocking to think that he ran it that slowly. And it just shows us that there were a lot of changes or a lot of difficulties and challenging things on the course that we hadn't seen maybe in the past years.
I think all eyes are going to be on John Kelly in the next couple of days
Totally.
to try to figure this year out, because
What
he's
happened?
obviously, um, the one of the most experienced, if not the most experienced, Barkley veteran ever to have done this event. He's run it. This is 8 attempts at it now. He's also notably from the area, so the stories when he came to the Barkley and conquered it were that, like, this is like the prodigal son returning to his homeland to dominate the Barkley. So he'll have a really good perspective on what the eccentricities were, the additions, the subtractions by Lazarus Lake to make this year an especially difficult one, as well as like the truth about the conditions from a runner's perspective, right? Because there's been a bit of debate about that. We'll get into that in a second, but let's continue looking at the storyline here as we went through the last 40 hours, or the 40 hours that this race played itself out. So we had 10 loop one finishers. Again, another stat that jumped out right away when we were doing the live results of this thing, where the leader that came in finished loop one in 9 hours, 44 minutes, 57 seconds. That was also, I believe, the slowest leader to have finished the first loop in the recorded history of this event. We only have data that goes back to year 2000. And shout out to this dude, Taka. You can find him on Blue Sky. Taka does stuff at Blue Sky. This kid is like, they've been putting together an incredible spreadsheet over the course of the last few years and following this event very, very closely. And they're doing God's work right now in terms of collecting all this data, because none of this data is public. None of this stuff is tabulated by the race that I know of. At least they don't make it public knowledge. So to have all of these splits at our fingertips going back to 2000, or as many as possible, is magical. So we can kind of do a fulsome analysis as we're doing here today, right? So yeah, so it was a bad start.
Taka plus GPT, Taka plus Chat GPT, you can know everything about the Barkleys. In fact, it's messing with the elusive nature of the Barkleys, or bringing it down to numbers.
A little bit, yeah.
This, I'm going through the spreadsheet. We had four people completing loop number 2. That's crazy. Getting slower even than they were in loop number 1. I think, like, if there were many surprises. The biggest surprise for me, I think, was that Kelly completed the second loop, but he wasn't in the lead, and I figured that his expertise would shine through. He'd be leading the thing.
Yeah.
First man to come through was a Tomokazu Ihara of Japan, who crossed loop 2 in 24:32, about half an hour ahead of Kelly. Then Kelly crosses, and then a duo of Frenchmen, so Sébastien Réchon and Maxime Godin, are in 3rd and 4th, and they were running together. And so when they all came in, I wondered if the fact that the Frenchmen, even though they were behind, were in a pair, would maybe help them in loop 3.
Yeah,
That was not the case.
I've seen in previous races that and the documentaries that everyone can kind of check out. I really suggest that you do because they're really fun if you want to know more about the race. In the documentaries that I've seen, a lot of these runners run in packs from the get-go, and they try to do the loops together because, of course, the navigation will be better. You'll just be able to lead each other. It's just a good idea. And ultras in general, if you can stick with someone, you'll have a better time. So I've seen that in previous races, they stick together, they do the pack thing, right? And so even if some people drop out here and there, you've still got the 2 leaders or the 3 leaders often running together up until the end. Now, we didn't mention this in our podcast yesterday. The little trick at the end is that you can use this excellent strategy to run in a pack or to run in a pair. But if you get to the 5th loop, which no one did this year, they break you up because
That's right.
one of the runners has to go one way. You choose to go clockwise or counterclockwise, and the other runner has to go the other way. So the pack or running in a pair is a really great idea, which those Frenchmen did decide to do, and it can help you a whole lot. But at the end, if you do get to that 5th loop, you'll always get split up, which makes it even more challenging. So I just wanted to mention that nice little tidbit because we didn't get into that yesterday.
We'll put a pin on that because I want that as a talking point I want to get to when we hypothesized why this year was so particularly difficult, and that is one thing that popped up and came to mind for me.
Me too.
And we'll get into that in a little bit here, but let's continue on with this this timeline here. So yeah, from there, we've got these 4 runners, these 4 finalists. We should say that as it stands right now, we really only have 19 or 20 not even confirmed names of who even competed at the Barkley this year out of the possible 40 entrants. And it's not 100% clear if all 40 entrants started. Many years you'll get 36, 38 starters because they'll take on 40 people, but then obviously there's going to be a bit of attrition coming up to the race and you're not going to get all 40 at the start line. So presuming that there were, say, 38 to 40 starters, I only have 19 names in front of me. There's a couple of more names that probably were there, but aren't confirmed. And of that group, we only have a handful of people where we actually got a real clear understanding of how the race went down because they were able to finish loop 1 and then loop 2. So of the runners that went out and attempted loop 3, how it shook out was this. About halfway through the race, at one of the checkpoints, a fire tower where you can see the runners if you're up in that area. We got word that John Kelly had actually overtaken Tomo and had taken the lead, for lack of a better term. Saying that someone is in the lead in the Barkley is a very weird thing to say.
It is
subjective, isn't it?
Yeah. And that did, I guess, propel Kelly to a fun run finish. Tomo did not end up completing the fun run. Neither did Sebastien Richon. They both had to tap out in the end. I believe Tomo actually came into camp after the 40-hour cutoff and had obviously timed out. And Richon came in beforehand, but had not completed the event. So presumably he had not gotten all the pages from the books and had not done the course properly and just walked himself back in and threw in the towel, which is brutal. Tough for him. I imagine it's like a really awful emotional experience to have that happen, to not even get the fun run in for these guys. So we end up with one fun run finisher and a field that goes home devastated. Let's get into some of the stats that we have gathered and evaluated. As I said before, we've crunched the numbers with going all the way back to 2000. The event started in 86, but we don't have data from 86 to 1999. We only have 2000 moving forward to work with, but that's a healthy amount of data to look at here. And the question that I posed to you guys was this the worst year ever for the event, for performances? And how you evaluate that's tricky, right? Like Caitlin, we could see this in a couple of different ways.
Yeah, I see it. Okay. The way that I was looking at it, what I was trying to decide, is it the worst year because only 10 people finished loop one, or 10 people finished loop one and only one person finished the fun run? Or is it worse or is it better if only one person finishes the whole thing? Like what means more to you? That you have 20 people
Yeah.
who finish the first loop and no one finishes the whole thing? To me, I feel like there's a little bit more merit for someone to finish the entire race. So for me, seeing 10 people finish the first loop and one person finish the fun run, I would say, well, to me, it seems like a pretty bad year because you did not have one finisher do the entire race. I'm giving more merit to years where 1, 2, or last year, 4, 5 people finished the actual entire Barkley Marathon. And that could mean 5 people finish the whole thing, but only those 5 people or 6 people finish the first loop. And that has
Right.
more merit to me than more people finishing like 1 loop, 2 loops, or 3 loops. I don't know. What are you guys looking
Yeah.
at it that way, or how are you looking at it?
I mean, I feel like however way you dice it, you can make a case for this year being the worst year ever.
Right.
Like, right? There's never been a year where only one person finished loop 3 since 2000, I'm pretty sure. And also this 10-person finish is the worst since 2000, right? Since its history. So whichever way you look at it, this year's the worst by far.
All around.
Okay, so I decided to try to figure out a way to score and evaluate each year since 2000. And this is definitely an imperfect scoring system. And I actually by from Caitlin's perspective, and I think I lean towards you, Caitlin, as well, in terms of like on a curve, you've got to exponentially value a finish versus a one loop finish. But
Right.
just for the sake of staying conservative here, I scored it. Every competitor in the event that finished one loop in each year accrues 1 point for that year. If you finish 2, 2 points, and so on, all the way up to a full finish 5 looper of the Barkley Marathons is worth 5 points for your year for the field. So it's basically kind of like turning each year into a team event where it's like you've got your 40-person team against the event itself every year since 2000. And obviously, a perfect score would be 200. That would be all 40 participants starting and finishing, which, good luck with that.
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
So I then fed that into our friend ChatGPT to do some quick math for us, then made sure it wasn't hallucinating a couple of times because that happens too. And this is what we got. Last year, 2024, by far the most successful year. We had 5 finishers, of course. We had a lot of people finishing 1 loop or 2 loops as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that year actually got a score of 138.
Oh, not
and
bad.
And so in order to make like 138 or 200, in order to make this easier for us to wrap our minds around, I then did a little bit of math and had it turn into a percentage out of 100. So it's like let's call it like what would be a cool name for this, guys? The Barkley success rate score. Let's there we go. Barkley success rate 2024, 69% success rate, by far the most successful year.
Okay, so that's still a D.
Yeah, that's still
Sorry,
that's a D.
Imagine
Here's
any other race
Caitlin.
where like less
That's a
than
D.
30% of the starters even finish the event. I'm not sure like how popular the New York City Marathon would be if only 69% of people even finished at all. Even did anything at all, even like got past the like 5K mark is actually the way you'd have to look at it.
Right.
The lowest score, 10.5% out of 100. That was this year.
That's
10.5. The second lowest was 2021 with a 13.5. So by that metric, this year was by far the worst year ever in terms of performance by the Barkley. So if you're hanging out at a dinner party or you're doing your very long run with your ultra running pals this weekend, you can wow them with that stat that, well, statistically speaking, it only scored a 10.5% Barkley success rate score out of 100 this year compared to last year, which was 69%.
And there's a narrative around it now. I was looking at the comments from our content and our videos, And there's this general feeling from viewers and watchers that Laz was pissed.
Yes.
Oh,
And that's why things were so hard. That's the belief. I'm curious to hear what John Kelly has to say when he bushwhacks his way out of Tennessee, or out of the park, because I guess he's staying in Tennessee, and gets cell service again. But I think that was the idea. That's at least what people think, is that Laz Lake didn't like the fact that 2023 and 2024 were two of the highest scoring years for the Barkley, and he cracked the whip.
I completely agree with you. And that's what I mentioned yesterday. Like he's like, well, no, the Barclays I'm pissed. I'm upset that 5 people finished. I need to make it harder for this year. And this is why I really want to know what happened on that course. What did he do? Because he wanted it to be a brutal year for the runners. He wanted to win. Because when we say that the Barkley Marathons wins, I think it's Lazarus Lake wins. He takes that. It's Laz Lake versus the runners.
Let's get into that. Let's talk a little bit about this. Thank you guys for teeing this up so perfectly. The pivot to why this was such a terrible year. Short of Mr. Lake unleashing, 10 grizzly bears and creating a mudslide down Rat Jaw, and perhaps growing some extra brambles on the power line cut in the off season. The factors in play here, of course, we will not know the specifics about the course tweaks itself by the race organizers. We can speculate on a couple of those in a second. But the first thing that was being discussed quite a bit on social media was weather, because it was an odd year for weather. It wasn't a straightforwardly terrible year. Like there wasn't just like an absolute downpour the entire time. It wasn't terribly cold for the first 24 hours, but there was a lot of chatter about, oh, well, it's just slightly too warm. And the race started too late in the day from the first day. And we got off to a bad start, a bad first loop, which has set everyone back. And that's the major factor here. Caitlin, you've run 100 milers before. Obviously, this is a different animal than a straight up
Yes,
vanilla conventional 100 miler. But you've been out there full day, full night. I've done this sort of thing before myself, where you spend, upwards of an entire day and an entire night on your feet in the middle of nowhere. I heard some veterans saying that like slightly warm weather is not that big a deal. It's when it gets really cold and really rainy and adverse when it's a big deal. But what's your take on that?
What I noticed is I went through the highs and lows and the temp for each of those 3 days. And the first day, it seemed like when they started out, it was really nice because like 55 degrees Fahrenheit, right? 13 Celsius, that seems pretty good. And the evening got to about 36 degrees Fahrenheit. So I don't think that would have messed with many of the runners. In general, I feel that the extreme heat can really mess a lot of runners up more than the extreme cold. And actually, I have a little bit of a different take. And maybe the only reason why I think that is because I see a lot of runners, and I've seen a lot of elite runners come to Costa Rica to run.
Right.
And they're supposed to come, to the North Face Challenge here, and you see them zombie walking at kilometer 30 at an 80K race. and the locals, and we're used to the heat, we're used to the humidity. It's in the 80s, it's in the 90s, super high humidity. And we're just running through it because we're used to it. We're more accustomed to it. And I feel like if you don't practice in the heat or you're not used to it, it can really take a toll. Also, when you're running in the heat, you can't keep taking clothes off. When you're running in the cold, if you have the right gear, and you can really bundle up and kind of take care of yourself a little bit more. So I think if you're prepared for the cold, you can take care of yourself a little more than if you're running in the heat. However, running in the cold unprepared can be really uncomfortable if you get wet, if your feet get wet, if your hand gets wet. So I feel like there are different issues. If it were to have rained a lot, I think that would have been an issue. But they were complaining about the heat, right? And the second day, I got to 73 degrees. And the third day, I got to 81 degrees. So I feel like maybe the heat could have been a factor. 81 is tough. 81 is really tough. And I see a lot of people struggle with that heat. It just slows you down. You got to worry about your hydration a lot more. It makes it tougher to eat. And late in the race, I feel like the heat could have been a big factor, which is why I'm just chomping at the bit to hear what these runners have to say. If they actually think that the heat may have messed them up a little bit more than some of the other factors.
I mean, Alex, as dyed-in-the-wool road runners, you and I both are, we know that our peers love to use the slightest weather challenge as the massive excuse for the bad day at the office. The Barkley, the sort of the profile of the Barkley runner doesn't strike me as somebody who like leans into excuses. So I do genuinely wonder if this was actually a real factor.
Yeah, I feel like these people will come out of the woods and just give us something like, I wasn't strong enough, and we're never gonna know.
Yeah, you're right.
They blame themselves.
Right.
It's just like, they just weren't tough enough mentally to get through, 80 plus degree weather and blowing winds and freezing cold nights. Yeah.
Oh, it's like, I don't know if the Barkley is a robust event or not, if that makes sense. And here's what I mean. Like, think of the complete opposite of the Barkley Marathons. Let's say it's the 100 meters, a race that is very, very short, super tailored. One little thing can go wrong. Like, you can be lacking one pin out of your spike, and that makes you lose 0.01 of a second, and you lose the race.
Yes.
As soon as one little thing goes wrong, your race is shot. As you go up in distance, like say if you run a marathon, you can have a few things go a little bit wrong and you can still figure things out.
Yes.
The Barkley is so huge and so complicated and so random that I feel like it makes it a robust event that every athlete can afford having a few mishaps.
Absolutely.
But I'm also contradicting myself, because one small thing can completely destroy your race. You can go the wrong way. You can not find a book. You can destroy your shin on rat jaw. You can, so
many things can go wrong.
Yes.
So many things.
So I don't know. I'm kind of split with that thought. I think there might have been something out there that screwed everybody up. There might have been one thing. Maybe the books were well hidden. I don't know.
I think almost like, and this is another weird comp to make here, but like, it's almost like, and I don't mean to freak you out, Caitlin, because you're running Boston this year.
Oh God.
And actually, this bodes well for you, actually, because you are training in a hot environment from the jump. So for you, it's actually going to be a nice cool day in Boston if it's a brisk 60 degrees or whatever, if it's a warm day in Boston. But for a lot of runners, particularly if you look at this field, a lot of people in places like Colorado, in the Northeast, France, the UK, they're still dealing with very cool temperatures for all of their training, presumably for this. Then they come to Tennessee, the weather ratchets up a little bit temp-wise, and 70 degrees is going to feel like 95 degrees for someone who's just spent an entire winter training and preparation for this. So that could be a factor. And that happens in Boston every year. When you get a slightly warm year in Boston, it's an exasperating experience because you've been training in cold weather the entire time. Your body's not ready for it. So maybe that is a factor. But I think the bigger question, sorry.
No, and I'm just thinking, I'm just reminiscing about when we just went to Boston a couple weekends ago, and you guys were so used to training in the cold, and it was in the 20s, and Michael was sweating because he had, because we thought it was going to be.
I was taking layers off. I was like,
Michael's taking layers off. I am shivering, and so that is a real thing because I'm originally from Boston, so it does make a really big difference where you're training and where you're living and what you're used to. And everyone came off for the most parts of the world, came off a really cold winter this winter. So they weren't training. It wasn't even kind of a mild, normal winter. It was an extremely cold winter. So I absolutely agree with you that, maybe it just, even though it was in the 70s, it felt a whole lot hotter.
And we should say, Caitlin, that we were trying to shoot a video at one point when we were out on a run.
So embarrassed.
And we stopped a segment of filming because you're like, I don't feel like my mouth is moving properly. I think I look strange.
Yeah,
do I look weird right now? And I was like, oh man, okay, it is cold for you. Yeah. Man, I was like, yeah, you're right. I was dripping.
Yeah.
And that is it. It's like, it's a subjective experience. The weather is definitely a subjective thing for each runner. I think probably the main thing overall though, and again, we're going to have to wait on the competitors in this event to give us the feedback on it. But I think, as you said, Alex, Laz Lake, the maniacal creator of this event, decided to just make this thing really brutal because last year a record number of people finished, and he was like, this cannot stand. I must crush the field this year.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious to find out what tweaks were made. It could be something as simple as just hiding the 13 books that you have to find a little bit more carefully and making it, because there are conventional hiding places. This is something that perhaps somebody who's not been to the Barkley before doesn't know. It's something that I became privy to covering the race in person a couple of times. And it's that there are kind of conventional spots where the books get placed. There's kind of an overall area for each of the books where they get hidden. And specifically, like if they're tucked behind a rock over here or underneath the spot there, that's kind of where veteran runners go and seek out the book right away. And oftentimes it's more or less in that spot. I wonder if Laz was like, to hell with this. I'm putting it 50 meters away down over here, and good luck finding it in the middle of the night when you're trying to find it, right?
Yeah, bury them.
Yeah, which could be an explainer in part for the very long Loop 1 finishing times, where you're seeing even veteran runners struggling to figure out something as simple as where the books are. That could be a factor, for sure. In terms of other elements of like tweaking the construction of the course to make it more difficult, I mean, we could speculate, but ultimately we're just going to have to wait for the runners to give us the feedback on that one. One thing you touched on before that I think is a huge factor is it doesn't seem like many people work together this year.
Teamwork is key. And I think teamwork is key. When you're running, even when you're running an ultra, when you're running 100 miler, you ultras out there are going to totally understand me. It's like, if you are just lucky to be next to someone, because in ultras, you can run really long parts of those races alone. I have run 70 kilometers out of a 100-kilometer race by myself because there's just no one with me at that time.
Fun.
It is brutal. You're just on your own. And so teamwork, I know that I feel like when I have someone next to me, first of all, I feel safer on the course in terms of not getting lost, in terms of not paying attention, maybe for a split second on the route and not taking a wrong turn. If you're in a group, at least if you veer off course, you're with someone. You have 2 people or 3 people to try to backtrack and figure out what went wrong. So you feel a little more confident. You have some companionship there to help you through it. And so I feel perhaps if they didn't use that strategy, that could have been something that hindered the success rate a little bit.
Yeah, and I would say that that's on a marked course that is designed for you to know where you're going.
Right? Imagine.
Yeah.
This one is designed for you to not know where the hell you're going. It doesn't exist. It's an idea, right?
Yeah. It's the blind. It could be the blind leading the blind.
Totally.
Yeah. So I think that must have been a big factor there. And it's something that, having been on the ground at this event in the past, was a big talking point in the past of like, who is going to work with whom in this event. And you would even see, some big ego competitors, guys like in the past, like John Kelly and Gary Robbins, 2 very competitive guys. Gary Robbins certainly wanted to finish the Barkley, and let me tell you, he wanted to win the Barkley when it came down to like who was going to touch the gate first. But in that situation, you would often see multiple top flight runners coming to the event working together for at least the first 4 loops to get through the event. And then it was kind of like the gloves came off in loop 5, right? So I think that that's a factor. What do you guys think? What do you think the single biggest factor was? Alex, what do you think like the one big standout thing is? Just your guess, your speculation.
That caused people to screw up.
Yeah.
I think it's the last thing. I think it's the last thing.
I'm sticking with that too.
These people are massive grinders. It's a huge race. It's a long race, and weather could affect them no matter how much of a grinder you are. But could weather have affected everyone? Yeah. There are some people who trained in the heat. I'm sure they came from all over the world.
Yeah.
Why was it that everyone struggled? There has to be one common factor. And I think it's Laz, man. I think it's Laz. Before the podcast, we talked about this a little bit, and we're going to talk about it in more depth because this is the question that interests me the most about the Barkley. And I've been thinking about this myself. Is the Barkley benefiting from making itself harder, or should it make itself easier? And I think that's the question Laz is asking himself. And I think this year he went to make it harder.
Okay, so let's pivot to the next question. And before I do, I'll answer my own question briefly, which is, I also think that the late start, which I kind of initially discounted as being not a very big deal, and if anything, a benefit when the race started, I was like, oh, this is great. The runners have got to sleep in, even if they had a bad night's sleep the night before, they got to like relax for a while, conserve their energy, carb load like crazy and prepare themselves, and then start in the daylight and have an entire afternoon to get things going. In retrospect, I think that the start was too late, hurt everybody out of the gate to complete a quicker first loop, and then created this domino effect with subsequent loops for the remaining 10 people for loop 2. So next question. This year was, let's say it, probably the hardest year ever, or at least the poorest performance year ever by the field. I think statistically we can argue that pretty confidently. Is the Barkley in danger of hurting itself and its reputation by being too hard this year? Did the pendulum swing too fiercely in the opposite direction from 2024 when you had a record 5 finishers? Alex, what's your take on that?
My take is that no. My take is that Laz made the correct move. What's the risk? That no one will want to try it? Definitely not. There's a bunch of plebs out there who want to do this thing. There's always going to be. And if it's not, John Kelly keeps coming. If 25, even 30 of the athletes this year say this was crazy, I'm never doing this again, he will find 30 more who are very good and who are willing to give it a try. And the alternative is, say Laz said, you know what, it was really good to have Jasmine Paris finish last year. We got a whole lot of good press. Let's make it a bit easier, have more people finish. Well, then he runs the risk of having the Barkley fall into the territory of just other ultras that were hard.
Like any Michael, old hard ultra, exactly.
Yeah, you did an ultra in Hong Kong. It was hard, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was a little tough.
Sounds like you were a disaster, and everybody else too.
Yep.
And other ultras are hard. And if the Barkley goes from being nearly impossible to just pretty hard, it loses the appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call. Good point. And it's like okay. I'm going to make a weird analogy here, although an apt one for the current climate in American life and politics, although we will not get into that. The Barkley is kind of like wrestling. It's like WWE.
Wrestling.
Yes.
Okay.
Hear me out.
All right.
There's narratives in wrestling. And there is a strategy behind the narrative arc in wrestling. There is the heel, which is the bad guy. And there's the protagonist, which is the good guy. And the good guy over time turns into being the bad guy and vice versa. And when you think about the Barkley, it is very much constructed kind of like WWE wrestling is constructed, where you have this drama unfolding and it's constantly changing. It's not static. This isn't your conventional running race. This isn't the Boston Marathon where the course is the same every year. It's the Newton Hills and the Heartbreak Hill are sort of an antagonist, but otherwise the race is this kind of benign presence, and the race director isn't really a factor, and it's just kind of like you versus yourself. You're trying to run a time, so on and so forth. The Barkley it's wrestling, it's entertainment sports. Laz Lake is like, Vince McMahon back in the day.
Character.
He's been canceled, but like, yeah, like the bad guy, and he plays the heel purposefully. He chooses to do so. Sometimes he turns into protagonist when he graciously celebrates, Jasmine Paris being the first woman to finish, but then he was playing the bad guy purposefully. So I think by in advance of that, saying no woman could ever finish my race and so on and so forth, which is a bold stance to take and, a very controversial stance. And also he risked his own reputation to do that, I think very strategically and purposefully. But this guy is orchestrating WWE wrestling and high level entertainment, and it's constantly shifting each year. And he needed to do this year.
Ooh, I was going to call you full of shit, and I don't think I can. I think I agree with you. I didn't realize that I agreed with you. But when I think of how I related to the Barkley in the past, it's changed over years. Before, I wanted someone to finish. Like, I desperately wanted to see someone finishing.
Right.
And then last year, I got invested in Jasmine Paris and wanted her to finish. The protagonist was clear, and
Yep.
the antagonist was clear. The antagonist was Laz in the course.
Yep.
This year, ooh, this is weird. I was
cheering for the bad guy.
I was rooting for the course because I thought exactly that. Like, as soon as people start finishing the Barkley, well, then it's not really a thing anymore. It's kind of whatever. I was kind of hoping that the course was going to be impossible. Huh. Okay, you made me realize something about how I relate to the Barkley. Interesting.
The worst possible outcome this year. I'm sorry, John Kelly, to say this. The worst possible outcome would have been John Kelly finishing for a fourth time.
Yeah.
A second time in a row. Would have been terrible because it would have watered down the reputation of this event. Okay. So, couple of final questions for you guys. A couple fun ones.
Okay.
One oddball thing that got tweeted out by Keith Dunn, the de facto PR spokesman for the Barkley event, the guy who hangs out at the gate every year and tweets away with 3 phones, tweeted out in the middle of the night last night while they were killing time and there was no word yet from any of the runners that the sign at the gate that says "Do not block the gate." It's been there for many years. It's been part of one of the real iconic images of the Barkley is the yellow gate, right? Where you start and finish the race there. You have to lay your hands on the yellow gate to finish a loop and then ultimately to finish the Barkley Marathons. Lots of dramatic photos over the years of that gate. There was a sign that was screwed into the side of it saying, "Do not block the gate," because it's a provincial park and they didn't want you blocking the gate. It was an access point. That sign has been removed. I think it's because it was old and fallen apart and was given to Laz. And now Laz doesn't entirely know what to do with it. And Keith Dunn sort of volleyed up this idea that maybe they're going to auction off this sign to the highest bidder.
I would have thought Laz would have wanted that in his house. I mean, come on, put it like at the entrance of your house, at your front door. Do not block the gate. That would have been amazing.
That would be good.
Yeah.
It makes me want to buy it and put it on the front door of my place in the middle of Toronto in the city. Do not block the gate. There is no gate. What are you talking about? So my question for you guys is this. That's a good piece of memorabilia.
Oh, yeah.
Question for you guys is this. What piece of memorabilia would you want to steal away from the Barkley if you visited the event? Sear, what do you got?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
No, sorry, Alex. Caitlin, you want to take it? Take it.
I just think I would love to have, and maybe this is what a lot of people would say. I would love to have the pages from the books. And make a little journal. I'm one of those scrapbooky people. I still love printing out photos and having the photos. So it would be really nice to make some sort of a memory book of the Barkleys with, the very few pictures that I'm sure you have because you can't take any on the course. And then the pages or some of the pages of the book. That would be awesome. Of the books.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It is a good one.
I would, if I can take this piece and lock it in a Ziploc bag forever, would love John Kelly's winning shoes. Just to see how beat up those shoes are after a full Barkley. They don't have to be John Kelly's. Any Jasmine Paris, any champion, to see what happens to a single pair of shoes after running 100 miles through the Tennessee backwoods. In fact, I wonder if they change. Maybe they change shoes.
They do.
Maybe
They
probably do.
I've seen it. They have multiple pairs of shoes. Yeah.
But that's
that makes
very
it
fitting.
cool.
That's fitting for you, though, Alex. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
I mean, hey,
yeah.
I have a shoe collection here. Why not add a pair of ratty old?
That's good.
I don't know what they wear. Yeah.
I like it. That's cool.
Yeah. Short of the gate, I would say can I take the entire gate? I mean, I would feel guilty owning the gate. I don't know what I would do with the gate. I don't know how I would get the gate across
Good
the
luck
Canadian
crossing that across
border.
the border. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do
I
you have a
live in
picture at
a.
the gate, Michael?
I'm pretty sure I do. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I have pictures
Cool.
of the gate that I've taken, but I think one year my wife and I were there one year together, and I think we took a photo standing at the gate. I mean, it's
Cool.
like it's become what a unexpected, bizarre icon in the sport that is the yellow gate.
Yeah.
But I'd slap that yellow gate in front of my parking pad and here in downtown Toronto and in front of my house, and you'd have to open the gate and close the gate to park in my front driveway. But apart from that, I actually have a couple of pieces of memorabilia from covering the event, from being at the event.
Oh, what do you have?
One, I mentioned this in our live feed over the last couple of days. I have what I guess you would call a race shirt from the Barkley. I don't know if they make them anymore, but for many years, Laz would have a like bespoke for that year Barkley, not a finisher shirt, because that's ironic, but like, and not even a participant shirt, but it was just like a race shirt that you could buy for it was like 10 or $20. It was this like cheap technical white t-shirt with, a weird graphic that was very appropriate, blazed onto the chest. And I think it was like a skeleton saying something. I don't remember off the top of my head what it says, like the race that eats it young or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to wear the damn thing because I don't want to wear it out. I don't want to run in it because I don't want to stink it up and then render it useless. I don't know what to do with it. It just sits in my closet. And then I've also got a hat from this Frozen Head State Park. Got a Frozen Head State Park baseball hat as well that I wear around sometimes.
Oh, you should have worn it on the.
I should have worn it today. I
pod.
should have worn it for
Yeah,
this podcast.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I can't believe I didn't think of that. The real ones know that. Like when I'm wearing that one and I'm like walking around and I'm like dropping my kid off at school and somebody's like, Frozen Heads, is that the Barkley Marathons? Cool, man. And I'm just like, yes.
Like, wow.
Nice.
Wow.
All right. So keep an eye out on that. We'll definitely do a story on that if that piece of memorabilia, that sign, comes up for auction for real. We'll definitely do a story on that. So you can put your bid in. You can what's it going to go for?
What will that go for? I can't
2,000,
even guess.
10,000. What is that? Like, I don't even know what the
What is
interest
that
level on
worth?
that would be. What is
Yeah,
it worth?
It's gonna go for like $80,000.
Holy
Someone's gonna pay. Yeah, someone's
think
gonna pay.
so?
Yes, one person's gonna pay a crazy amount, and they're gonna do it because they love the Barkley, and it's going to be a donation type thing.
Yeah.
Watch.
Yeah. I think it's going to like the Barkley Foundation, I believe it's called, which, I'm not sure what they use that money for, but
Last Lake cigarettes.
that's right. Just cartons and cartons of Marlboro Reds.
And the 13 books. That's it.
That's right. And
books.
the scavenger hunt for the
Yeah.
books used in the scavenger hunt. Okay. Next question. What feature of the course would scare the shit out of you the most to have to do? And there's a lot of them, right?
Rat jaw. Sounds disgusting, and you can get hurt. I think that's what it is. I am not one for like the spooky stuff. I don't really care, like the prison tunnel or whatever. I think that would just be kind of fun. What I wouldn't like is the real possibility of ripping up my legs throughout the course. Then you risk infection, and I think that would play on me way more.
You took mine. I'm not going to be original because that's exactly what I wouldn't like to do. I mean,
Yeah.
here I've had to climb ropes under waterfalls, coming out of caverns. I've done some really crazy stuff. I would prefer all of the regular, super technical, steep terrain. That doesn't bother me at all. That doesn't bother me at all. But I would not want to cut my legs up. I would not go through those brambles. I wouldn't. I would just say, okay, I'm done. Like knowing that that's there is such a deterrent to me to do that race.
And they're really bad.
Yeah.
But the scary thing is that if this race were to transpire in the fall, they would be all grown in and much worse, which is a terrifying thought. Mine would probably actually be having to kind of root around beneath the prison in the water in the darkness, especially like during the night portions of this event. That would just be like gross. It's a very grim spot, that prison. Now they've improved it in the last few years because it's turned into a bit of a nostalgia commercial play where like they've restored it. And because it used to just be like a scary condemned old prison that's no longer in use and slowly rotting away. And now it's been like transformed into like there's a distillery there's a barbecue place in there, and it's kind of like the Disneyland version of the Barkley. But I think still in the middle of the night, kind of trudging around in underneath that thing would be creepy. That would be mine. Or just like being on the tops of the mountains in the fog at 3:00 in the morning would not be fun.
Yeah.
Final question for you guys. Do you think that you could have gotten one loop done this year?
No. Okay. It depends. If I went with a group and they could help me navigate, yes. But I feel like that's my biggest weakness. And if only 10 people could do it, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Alex?
No. This isn't my thing. You might as well ask me if I want to do some pro wrestling. I don't navigate. I don't orienteer.
Yeah, me either.
I have trouble getting out of my condo. Like, no. This is not for me. I spectate. I respect. I do not partake.
Yeah, I'm a backwoods camping guy. I'm a wilderness guy. I'm comfortable with this stuff. I've been there. I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. But I still think that I just look at the data and I'm just like, only 10 people that got this thing done this year. I don't think I would have been one of the 10. We each of us have got a healthy ego, of course, but like, I'm with you guys. Just like, I'm not going to fool myself here.
No, I'm honest with myself.
I would have been crushed by this thing this year for sure.
And I do think, and this will inspire an upcoming reel, that everyone has that friend who thinks they could do the Barkley.
Oh yeah.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like complete it. Like, yeah, I could get it done. Yeah. Yes. 5 laps. All I got to do is just work on my map skills, get some fitness in. I'm ready to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard about some of the training that these people do. I talked at length with Gary Robbins many years ago about his training. He was running up and down a very well-known mountain called the Grouse Grind in Vancouver in North Van in the middle of the night multiple times as his training.
Yeah, he was like
absolutely insane.
Accumulating vertical meters.
That's right.
And for the average person, making it up the Grouse Grind once in broad daylight is considered an accomplishment.
That's right. And he was doing it multiple times as like repeats. Talk about hill repeats. Let's do some 3 a.m. Grouse Grind repeats. Let's do 3 or 4 of them and see what happens. Yeah.
Doing some Everesting. No big deal.
All right, guys. We've covered it off. We have done our own micro version of covering and talking about the 2025 Barkley Marathons. We'll leave it at that for now. I'm excited about next year. Maybe we'll have to figure something special out for next year for this event. It's like a we'll see. We'll work on it. Alex is just like,
look at it. He's hiding. He doesn't want to go.
I'm busy for the month of March and April.
I mean, not run. I told you this once before, Michael. I'll be happy to help crew you, but that's it. I'm not doing it.
Hard pass on that one. Not on you helping me, but on the actual doing of the event.
Right.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. And
all right.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast. You can get it every Thursday morning. It goes out at 5:00-ish in the morning. We post it on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch our ugly mugs. Well, these two beautiful mugs and my overtired, sagging face on YouTube every Thursday. And subscribe to the newsletter. Goes out every day of the week. We put stuff in there, like a lot of neat stuff about the Barkley for today and yesterday's newsletter, and how you can follow it live and that sort of thing. So it's all goodness in that newsletter every single day. And Alex, you've got shoe reviews on YouTube. We've got an assortment of other things upcoming as well. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and you will get that notification as well. All right. Thanks, guys.